advertisers.
All right, kind of snuck up on me. I'm not gonna lie. I think I had one more minute left in me, but that's okay. Starting off the show with a little bit of NFL Street. So anybody who played on the GameCube, PS2, this one will sound a little familiar to you. But what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, aka Spencer the Wiz, and you're listening to the Delivering Sports Show. This is your late night talk sports show. If you're new to late night, if you're new to the show, I'm a recent graduate from UNLV and an avid sports fan. Podcasting and media are my life. If you want to know more about what I have going on, check out my Twitter at Spencer the Wiz or my YouTube channel, Blue Milk Boys Gaming. I do a lot of stuff like trading card games. I definitely done before. Movie reviews I try to do. A lot of awesome stuff. For my radio listeners, you can also catch the show live online via Twitter at Spencer the Wiz or YouTube under Delivering Sports YouTube page. And I also put this on the KSHP YouTube page as well, whatever is easiest for you. And after the show, I do put it up on the podcasting network. All you have to do is search up Delivering Sports on anything you listen to, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the whole 9 yards, and you will find it there. Before I get into a list of today's topics, let me start by saying Happy New Year's, first of all, to all of you. We're officially in 21, so it's nice to have 2020 behind us. And on that topic, quickly, I'll say, don't let fake time, social constructs affect your life. And what I mean by that is don't make New Year's resolutions just because it's January 1st. Be the change that you want to see in life. A lot of people will just say like, oh, now it's January 1st, so now I'm going to make a difference in my life. No, you're not going to. It's going to dissolve very quickly. You make a gym membership January 1st saying, no, New Year's resolution and stuff. It quickly dissipates. We talk about it every year. It's a big joke, on the internet a lot of the times. So that's, I feel like I'm starting off 2021 on the wrong foot, but no, everyone, please stay safe. And I'm glad everybody who listens to me, I appreciate you all very much. I'm very lucky to be in this seat right now. It's an absolute blessing. I did have to take last week off because of Christmas, but still, it was nice to take the week off, spend some time with family and everything like that. So we have that going on. But I do have a loaded show for you today. And in just a moment, I'll have on my father to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. I have a lot of thoughts on this regime of Raider Nation, so we'll see if my dad shares the same sentiments. We'll also talk a little bit about UFC because that's me and my dad's new thing. Every time on Saturday, there's a break right now, but we've been watching all the UFC fights, so we'll see what he thinks about that, especially Conor McGregor. And after that, I'm going to have Brad the Believer on to talk NBA rookies, top 15 NBA players, women in sports just in general. We'll have a Stephen Curry discussion, Derrick Rose, Johnny Manziel finds his way back in the news, and if we have time, we'll do some NFL talk. But without further ado, and I'm hoping I still have my dad on here. Hey, Dad, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm good, Dad. It's time to talk about the Raiders. I had to take a week off, so I didn't even think we've really had time to talk about it too much. But we got Marcus Mariota, who comes in, has a great game against the Chargers. The defense ultimately lets us down. And then Derek Carr comes back for that Miami Dolphins game, but he plays really well. It kind of silences any thought that people had on the whole discussion. So what is your take on Marcus Mariota, Dad? What should they do with him? Maybe they can trade him. They just have to pick up a $5 million option next year. So lots of options. Or maybe do you cut Derek Carr? You cut $24 million off the roster and put it into the defense? I don't know. You tell me the answer, Dad.
Well, before I do answer that, I just wanted to say congratulations on graduating college. Your mom and I are very proud of you.
Thanks, Dad.
Just wanted to put that out there because
Okay.
We are proud of you. It's a big accomplishment.
Oh, I appreciate that.
On the note of Mariota and Carr, I go back and forth. I believe that Gruden has built an offense that can win. Now, defense is obviously a different story, but I think he has built an offense that can win with a quarterback, a good, solid quarterback. And right now we have two solid quarterbacks. So I'm all for getting rid of one of them to where we can bolster our defense. Whichever one gives us the better chance to get a better defense, I'm all for getting rid of one of them.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to kind of segue into things, Dad, because we have Rod Martinelli took over. His name could be Rod Tortellini for all I care. But what are the Raiders going to do? And I want to get also into the discussion about Mike Mayock. I think this is where it all comes into fruition because a lot of the guys who Paul Gunther had simply aren't NFL caliber players, in my opinion, not starting caliber players at least. You can go down the list: Cleveland Farrell, Jonathan Abrams. I don't, drafting Henry Ruggs, which was a mistake. Damon Arnett got absolutely burned in the last game. When is it time to start pointing the fingers at him? I feel like he's just run under the radar this entire time.
Yeah, those fingers pointing might happen really soon when the off season starts. Gruden might have to make a decision to cut ties with him. I don't know. I'm coming to your side of the fence on these players because they're just not panning out. Our defense is awful as usual. I'd like to say to the new Las Vegas Raiders fans to get used to see what you see on defense because we've been watching it for years and years and years now. It's bad coaching, either bad personnel decisions. Something always is going wrong with our defense, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the fact that the Raiders have 0 Pro Bowl talent on their team, and I can't think of any other NFL team other than maybe the Jets, although I'm sure you can go down the list and find at least one guy who can get considered for that. I just think he gets too much credit for, he gets a few late. Max Crosby obviously came in the 4th round, and you also have the slot receiver who comes up in pretty big spots, but still, I don't know. I don't see a bright spot. Like, how can the Raiders possibly make the playoffs next year, Dad? I mean, when you have the most least talented defense in the NFL, I don't know where you take that, and I don't know how you get to improve to 10 wins because the Raiders are probably going to lose the last game against the Broncos, and they're going to have another 7-win season. What's going to put them over the hump? I don't know. I don't know how you fix it that fast.
I don't know how either. In my eyes, they absolutely will not make the playoffs next year. It will be another 7-9, 8-8 season, as you see. We're good enough to win some games, but we just don't have the talent on the defensive side of the ball to win enough games to go to the playoffs. I'm hard to say that, but it's just what we see.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I think Vegas media has done a tremendous job of selling the team to the city of Las Vegas, but there's that, and then there's reality and what we're seeing and what we know. And there's too much credit going around. Someone has to be there to blame, and I think it's going to go to him. So that's kind of our Raiders talk. But, Dad, I also want to talk to you about UFC because we've been getting into it quite a bit. And I want to start with the main fight that everybody's talking about, Conor McGregor. Now I'll give you my thoughts real quick. I think it's very weird. I mean, Conor McGregor is like the face of UFC, but he's also so far attached. Like, we watch the night in and night out weekly pay-per-views. It doesn't seem to be anything like him, and I don't really know where Conor McGregor fits in all of that discussion. So how do you feel about the Conor McGregor fight, Dad? Are you excited for it?
Well, I mean, it's just the type of guy everybody likes to watch, whether it's a circus or the stuff that happens outside the ring with him. He's not a nice guy, obviously. I mean, you see some of the problems he gets into with the law, and got a fight in the bar with some guy. But I mean, I want to watch it to see him lose because I don't like him. I don't like his persona. I don't think he's a very good role model for kids coming up in the sport. I'll watch it, but I just want to watch it to see him get beat.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that sentiment. And one fight that we really did like was the Figueiredo-Moreno fight, Dad. Figueiredo looked like he was unstoppable for about 3 fights in a row, and Moreno took it to him. And I thought there were a few times where he kind of backed off the throttle when he almost knocked out Figueiredo probably 2 times. So is this going to be the year where Figueiredo finally goes down, especially if there's a Moreno rematch? I think it's very possible.
Oh, I want to see a rematch so bad because in that fight, Moreno had Figueiredo. He was hurt. I want to say it was in the 3rd round. I mean, he pummeled him with a few shots, and I felt like he let him off the hook. I don't know how Figueiredo got out of that problem, that jam he was in. And it's the first time where there was a draw, and I felt like, yeah, it was a draw. I mean, I felt like it was the correct scoring. And it was a fantastic fight. It was so fun to watch. I want to see the rematch so bad.
Yeah, me too. And we'll just quickly finish up this conversation about UFC, because when we go back to live events, we obviously be able to talk about it a lot more. But what are your opinion on the women's division, Dad? Because we seem to have a lot of fun watching it, but the problem comes in that it doesn't seem very well defined. Like Figueiredo is the head of UFC when it comes to lightweight division, but when you watch all these women's fight, a lot of them have like 18-0 records, 16-2. It's kind of confusing. So I don't know. What do you think that the UFC can do to kind of better that image of the women's division? Because they're actually some of the more entertaining fights. They're very technical in that sense.
Yeah, the ones we've watched have been very entertaining and very close. I don't know. They need one of the girls to step up, and I don't know. I wish I had a finger on it, but like you said, they're very entertaining. All the ones we've watched. I guess there's just not one dominant one to where, she's going to fight. I got to watch this one. I got to watch this one. So I guess they got to promote somebody that way, bring them up the right way.
Yeah, and we saw that for a while, and I figured her name now. She went to the WWE, and then Holly Holmes beat her, and then Holly Holmes got beat immediately before that. So I think ever since then, it's kind of been in shambles. But thanks, Dad, for joining the Delivering Sports Show. I think this is the 4th episode now I've been on the radio, and I'll see you at home tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Dad. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
And without further ado, going on from that, I'm bringing on Rousey. That's right, Ronda Rousey. Thank you, Brad. But I am going to bring on Brad the Believer here. Hopefully, I have you on here. 1 second. Let me turn the computer up. Hey, Brad. How's it going?
Going great, Spence. Glad to be on the show with you tonight.
Absolutely. So that is not the right names. Give me 1 second. I do produce my own shows as I'm going through this, but this is Brad Restituto. For all you guys who don't know, he does the Rest Stop. I produce for his podcast. Really fun. We've been going on for about 38 episodes now, which is kind of just crazy to even think about how long we've been doing it. But it's really, we go through like political topics. We go through pop culture, a lot of sports. We do NFL picks. I'm close to around 55% on the year picking against the spread, and Brad was working his way up close to where I was too. So we have a lot of sports knowledge between the two of us, I would say.
I agree with that. And I'm going to copy the sentiments of your father. Quite proud of you, Spencer the Wiz, graduating college, have your own show on Friday night here on KSHP. And I'm excited to be on with you and going to wrap some sports up with you tonight in a big sports day here on New Year's Day.
No, for sure. It's great. It's a great way to go into 2021, especially with basketball. And that's what we'll start with here. And I'm going to do an NBA kind of like a rookie watch now, because I've seen a few games. I know you have to. You don't have to give your full opinions on them. Obviously, I haven't watched every single game, but I know you have a little bit of an impression. So I'll give mine and then I'll bounce it back to you. So we'll start with James Wiseman, kind of the big name of the draft, of course. He had his coming out party, I think, against the Pistons. The highlight play for him was he had a block. He got his own block and went the full length of the court, didn't pass the ball, ended up dunking it. So he showed a lot of skills on defensively. He's a lot more advanced than I thought he would be. The only problem I see with him is the offensive side of the ball. He just has no presence at all. He did hit a 3 here and there, but it's not going to be consistent. The guy's kind of invisible over there. But I know you like James Wiseman, so what have you seen out of him?
Yeah, I do like James Wiseman. I think from a scout's perspective, just looking at the optics, he's got the body type and the athleticism to be a really important 5 in today's game. You talked about his ability to handle the ball and his length and athleticism, which is just a dream for teams and scouts. I think him into this system with shooters like Curry, and of course they drafted him or were looking to draft him with the idea Klay Thompson would be in the lineup. They've also brought along some other guys to surround him to really fit his game. So I really like the pick. I really love the player. So he's got the athleticism. You mentioned a lot to be desired offensively. It's all going to depend, Spence, on how hard he works on that part of his game, because he definitely has he's not afraid to shoot it. I like his confidence, and he doesn't have bad form. So it's just going to be repetition. Is he going to be a Joel Embiid offensively in the next 2 years? Probably not, but it's all a matter of how hard he works. And if he puts in the work, I think we'll see that improvement on a year in, year out basis. And I think you'll see some improvement offensively as the year goes on. And what I said earlier, I really like his confidence. He's not afraid to shoot the ball, even if it doesn't go in. And that's almost the biggest key to the battle to start off. You've got to be fearless in wanting to shoot the ball. He's clearly taken many more threes than Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has zero confidence, but is 3 times the skill player of James Wiseman. So you'll see how far that'll take Wiseman if he continues to have that confidence and work on his game offensively.
Yeah, and a little bit of evidence, I'll say on that front, that he has been trying really hard because he had to take a whole year off of basketball. And the biggest questions for him was this guy picks up a lot of fouls. He's not very good defensively. He uses his length very well. So I think he spent most of his time on that and maybe a little less time on his offensive side of the ball. But that, to me, tells me that he is very much invested in having a good NBA career. I think he's already a harder worker than Joel Embiid. And one quick thing about Joel Embiid before we go on to the next rookie, I have to know when talk about this. So last year going into the bubble, he had a pregnant wife or girlfriend, whatever the case may be. And he said he was very scared to go to the bubble. You know, she could have been sick, which, I mean, the bubble is the safest place you could possibly be. So that's already kind of fishy to me. And I feel weird talking about this, but he did say he cared so much about his wife. But he said the only reason that he went was because he thought he could win a championship. He's just lying, isn't he? I mean, I don't know why you would, but he didn't actually think the 76ers had a chance to make a run. They were already without Ben Simmons.
Well, I got to disagree with you. I think if you're a professional athlete, you go into every opportunity thinking you can win. I don't see any other option. So I know it's easy for fans and sometimes for us to not agree with that take, but I think as a professional athlete, you walk into any situation with the thought and belief that you can win. So regardless of the odds or who you're playing against. So I don't necessarily agree with that take, but I understand where you're coming from.
But he knows he's lying. That's all I'm trying to say.
Maybe lying to himself, possibly, Spence.
Yeah, that's a much better angle to take it at. So maybe he really does believe in his mind, even though he knew it wasn't true. Going on next is Anthony Edwards, basically having the season that I predicted him to have. You know, you lose Karl Anthony Towns early in the season, so this is his chance. You know, the top pick. She's gonna show everybody. Well, let me give you some of his game stats here: 5 of 15, 5 of 12, 6 of 21, and 4 of 10. He was negative 21 and negative 14 plus minus. And if anyone doesn't know what a plus minus is, it's like if you're on the court and you score 2 points, you're plus 2 at that point. And if the other team goes down, scores 2 points, well, now you're plus 0. So his team was 21 points and 14 points worse with him on the floor. Technically, I know it's a team sport, but not the start that he probably wanted to his career. I was never a big fan of him. I don't know if you were, Brad, but what do you make of someone just not being this confident? I guess is good, but maybe to the detriment of his team too.
You know, I haven't watched a lot of Anthony Edwards in college when I think he was at the University of Georgia and the top overall pick. I know tonight he had 17 points. He was 2 of 8 from 3. And the Wizards beating Minnesota tonight, getting their first win on the season. His plus minus tonight was -7. So I need to watch a little more on Anthony Edwards. I know what they really liked about him is his ability to score. Well, the Timberwolves aren't very good this year. They had one upset win early in the year, but they've been getting their butt kicked night in and night out after that. And you mentioned Edwards' shooting stats up till this point. I think the volume he's getting, it's going to be hard to say he's a bust this early on, but certainly of the first overall pick, you want to see much more, and you want to see a guy that has the ability to be the face of the franchise. Karl Anthony Towns is out of the lineup right now, I believe, due to injury. So this is Edwards' time to really take over. So let's kind of monitor what he does during his time with Towns out. But up to this point in the year, Spence, everything you said is accurate.
Yeah, not a big fan. And this next one, we are kind of fans of him. It's kind of a weird discussion to have. It's Obi Toppin. I don't think he's necessarily been bad per se, but he hasn't found the court. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine a top 10 player pick not getting minutes. And effectively, Julius Randle is effectively having a career year, which was very possible going into the season. I mean, he's always been talented. We know that. And now he's, finding himself longer and longer in this New York Knicks system. I don't know. Because how do you make sense of any of this? Like, what was their decision for drafting him? Like, was he supposed to replace Randle and they thought he would have a bad season? Because there's so many other players I think they could have used right now that make a change.
You're exactly right, Spence. And through 5-6 games in, it looks like a horrible pick. And I'll tell you why. You mentioned some of it. He's playing the same position as their superstar player, Julius Randle. Julius Randle statistically is having a career year. I've liked him from the get-go when we were having the discussion in the sports world on who you would rather build your team moving forward with, Brandon Ingram as a Laker or Julius Randle. I was in the Julius Randle camp, and he's starting to shine in New York. It's just unfortunate that team and that organization has been a complete and utter disaster over the last decade. So Julius Randle may go to waste and not win games, or he may just be the superstar on one of the most storied franchises in sports history. And it looks like a terrible draft pick of drafting Obi Toppin because we don't know what he's capable of doing at this point. He got some minutes in the preseason, but a shortened preseason due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He didn't do too much in the preseason, but either they have to find a way to have those two on the court at the same time, or you're going to end up saying 2 years from now, we made a terrible decision drafting this guy when we had other needs. What value will he have moving forward getting rid of him? I know it's kind of very odd to say that at this point in the season, but why else would a top 10 pick not be getting minutes? The only answer, it looks like, Spence, is because he plays the same position as their best player, and he doesn't quite have the type of skill set, diversity, or IQ to work alongside Randle in another role. So what role can the Knicks use him as? It's hard to say. They're not winning many basketball games. They had a huge upset win over the Milwaukee Bucks earlier, and they had one other nice win mixed in there. But other than that, not doing too much. Julius Randle is carrying them, but they don't really have anybody else doing a whole lot. RJ Barrett, another highly touted first-round pick, not doing too much. I don't know exactly what the problem is with the Knicks, Spence. I'm going to have to watch some more to see why they can't be more consistent, but certainly – we know this is a make-or-miss league, and they don't have the consistency of the outside shot enough to compete with teams in today's NBA.
Yeah, and what's the solution? Do you trade Julius Randle for a bunch of draft assets? But the Knicks should be holding on to as much talent as they can, so I don't even know if there really is a right answer. If you get you're not even going to get 2 first-round picks for Julius Randle. It's impossible. Let's say you get a first-round pick and some sort of decent player. Is that worth it for them just to give Obi Toppin minutes?
I never thought of it that way. I wouldn't think that Julius Randle would be a tradable asset if you want to. I'm thinking he's somebody you can build around, but you got to put shooters around him. But you can make a good point, Spence. If you can coop a first round draft pick, possibly 2, I think Julius Randle would be amazing with a healthy Warriors team. Now, I mean, that may be weird, Draymond Green, but gosh, I just like what Julius Randle can do all around. So I don't know exactly, without thinking about it, where he might fit if the Knicks are up for trading him and where he could thrive. But to me, he's a superstar player. And but you could be onto something here. They may try to acquire draft picks and have Toppin move in there and go young. But now we're talking Tom Thibodeau, a complete rebuild for another 5 to 10 years. I mean, they're going to have to hit home runs in each and every draft moving forward, Spence, if they decide to do that with Julius Randle. And history has shown that they have been awful in the draft over the last decade. So they're going to have to change that quickly. So I know that they have a new GM in there. Tom Thibodeau's definitely going to want his voice heard, and that's what they're going to need. They're going to need to hit home runs in the draft for at least the next 3 to 5 years, and it's got to start next year because they're going to be in the lottery again in 2021.
Yeah, and the problem is hitting a home run in the draft hasn't really worked out for them. Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox, with much more talented guys going after them. I believe in the Kevin Knox draft, you had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Miles Bridges, a lot of guys who are just better than Kevin Knox right now at the moment. And then Frank Ntilikina just is having a hard time finding the court at all. So the Knicks are one to be looking out for sure, to see how they handle their situation. The next guy I'm going to talk about is Killian Hayes, and I don't have much to talk about. A guy who can't use his left hand is not going to be successful in the NBA. Very good court vision. I never really bought into anything he had going on in Europe, but in 20 minutes per game, just to prove my point here, he's averaging 5 points, 3.5 assists, 1.5 rebounds on 27.6%. I don't know. What are the Pistons thinking? I don't know what they were doing picking him in the first place with Tyrese Halliburton right there on the board.
Yeah, Spence, look, the Detroit Pistons got their first win tonight, and Killian Hayes played 23 minutes. He went 0 of 5 from the field. He had 0 points. He had 2 turnovers, and he also had 6 assists and 1 rebound. A lot to be desired from Pistons fans and from anybody following rookie Killian Hayes. A nice win for the Pistons. But Hayes, I don't know. You've talked about it from the beginning that you did not like this draft pick. Through the first 5 games of the season, you look spot on because he has really got to improve, or he's going to find himself as a free agent in the next 2 to 3 years. He might not even make it through his rookie contract if he does not get better and get better quick, because this is a bad Pistons team. He'll get all the minutes that he wants. He's got to produce.
He has to do something. And the name I just talked about is Tyrese Halliburton. Now, he hasn't been lighting it up at all, but he has been efficient, and he's playing in a very limited role on the Sacramento Kings because they still have Buddy Hield, and I don't think they're going to trade him either. I think they like the little dynamic they have going on there. But he's certainly been one of the most impressive rookies in a draft that looks like it has no all-stars like I predicted, and it seems like that's true going into the first 10 games here.
Spence, you were spot on about Tyrese Halliburton through 5-6 games. You talked about him being the steal of the draft, and among NBA circles and NBA pundits, they're saying the same thing through 5 games, that this guy, he's getting minutes in a very talented backcourt, and he is producing. He's not lighting it up, like you said, because he's not necessarily asked to do that. But what he's asked to do, he's doing that and more. And Kings fans are feeling like they've finally made a great draft pick, although De'Aaron Fox looks pretty solid. The Kings have got to be pretty happy with the direction they're going. They did lose to the Houston Rockets the other night on the road, but they had a nice home win against the Denver Nuggets. And Spence, they're talking playoffs in Sacramento this year for the first time in a long time. They feel like they can sneak into one of those 7th or 8th seeds, and Tyrese Halliburton could play a key role in their sustainability of winning games in that conference.
No, without a doubt. And I don't know. I just imagine what he could do for the Knicks right now, especially with, we know how good Julius Randle is, and he's having a career year from beyond the arc too. And Tyrese looks just as solid outside. He had a really deep 3 the other day just to show his range, man. I like everything that he's doing. We'll finish up this rookie talk with none other than LaMelo Ball, pretty much the headliner guy from the draft. Didn't start off too well, to start off the season. 2 back-to-back good games. Now, the Grizzlies blew out the Hornets unexpectedly. To me, the bet of the day was the Hornets, but of course, the NBA, you just never know what's going to happen. So what ended up happening, the Grizzlies did that, but LaMelo still had a good game in his own right. And I think it's very unrealistic to just expect him to put the team on his back. It's very much in his rookie season about how well can you play, not how well can you influence the team. I mean, he's going to run away with Rookie of the Year sooner rather than later here, because no one else is doing anything at all other than Okoro, who got hurt early in the season for the Cavaliers. He was kind of his only competition.
Yeah, look, tonight the Hornets lost to the Grizzlies, the underman Grizzlies, 108-93. Charlotte was down 16 heading into the fourth quarter. LaMelo Ball's plus-minus tonight was even. So it wasn't a big part of him. That was the problem. He did have two turnovers, but he had 15 points. He had 6 assists and 3 rebounds. And talk about somebody not lacking confidence. LaMelo Ball does not lack confidence, and I think that's going to be important for him moving forward, because he's got to be fearless in his ability to take shots, because we know he can make them. He's going to keep getting better. He's not a great shooter, but his confidence is going to be key, because he needs to keep shooting the ball and do what he does offensively. Now, he's got great size for a guard at his position, so he's going to have to bring that effort to be a defensive factor like his brother is. And if he can do that, I think he will start to separate himself as Rookie of the Year. Although I think Tyrese Halliburton, like you mentioned, is going to be in the conversation. I think by the end of the year, Wiseman may be in the conversation. I think it could be interesting with 3 or 4 guys coming down the stretch. But LaMelo Ball, he hasn't been in the starting lineup up to this point, but he's making an impact. The Hornets have a couple nice wins. I thought they should have won tonight. They were a favorite, but they got blown out. They're going to have to be more consistent. And it's interesting, Spence, and I know this is unrelated to the on the court, but the guy that he wanted his number 1, Malik Monk, has been DNP for most of the season this year. He might not be a Hornet by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because Malik Monk was talked about in a lot of trade talks last season for whoever it was for some decently valuable assets. And now the fact that he can't find the court, I think the guy's too much in his head to talk about him for a second. He's not a very professional player, and now it's going to ruin his career. We see it happen time and time again. I'm sure these guys have like conferences and all these kinds of lessons going into the NBA, and some of them just choose to ignore it. That's kind of how I feel about him. But yeah, so that we're not going to go over every rookie. I mean, Denny has been just good. Patrick Williams has been okay, but they've been a little quiet. So if they make any sort of splashes, we'll go back over that. But we have a lot more to talk about. And this one, we've been talking about kind of personally for a long time now. And I finally want to flesh this out over the radio. And that's Donovan Mitchell. Now, I was listening to a Utah Jazz game the other day on Sirius XM radio, the play-by-play, and the topic about Donovan Mitchell came up. Is he a top 15 player in the NBA? on face value, it seems like an easy yes, but if you break down, it's not as easy as you might think. And I'll put up a graphic here, so for all of my listeners, and hopefully the computer's a little frozen here, so you have to give me a second. But we'll go over the obvious ones while I wait for this to kind of figure it out. Here we go: LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, James Harden, Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, and Kawhi. So that's 10. So he's not top 10 automatically. So if you're thinking that, I see no argument there. I don't know how you feel about those 10 names, Brad.
Yeah, we're in agreement there. I think you could have an argument for 3 or 4 guys in that 10th spot. I wouldn't freak out over that selection if you wanted to move a couple guys interchangeably in that last 10 spot. But I'm pretty confident with the list you put up there as top 10.
Okay, so there's top 10. So let's keep going further. Ben Simmons, what do you say about that?
No, not at this point. He's got the talent, but he hasn't been healthy enough to play every single game. He's made zero impact in any of his playoff performances. And with his inability or unwillingness to shoot, there's no way I'm ready to put him above a guy like Spider Mitchell or a couple other guys that we're going to mention.
Even though he's able to influence the game a little bit, I don't know. I think Ben Simmons is better than Donovan Mitchell at this point, but that's okay. I can concede that one. What about his teammate, Joel Embiid?
Joel Embiid does make that list for me. Is he ahead of Donovan Mitchell? We can discuss that. Joel Embiid, is a franchise player in my opinion, and even though it may be tough, I would take him over Ben Simmons. I know a lot of people question his work ethic and staying in shape, but I there's something within me, Spence. We talk about it a lot about having the juice. I believe Joel Embiid has it. I love what he can do on both sides of the floor. It's just a matter of him kind of flipping that switch and taking it to another gear as far as work ethic wise. But I've seen too many instances where he can take over a game offensively and defensively. And when he does that, it usually equates a win for the Sixers.
Yeah, and I just think the big man's too influential. I mean, there was a time where everyone said, oh, the center position is gone. And then, go back just one season during the bubble. The big man was the biggest influence of the playoffs. Bam Adebayo in the East basically brought them, you have Jimmy Butler too, we'll talk about in just a second. But he is a huge reason the Heat were able to make the finals. Jokic was able to carry them past the Clippers, a much more talented Clippers team, because they had no matchup on him. And then Anthony Davis was the prime player in the playoffs all along. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll also put Joel Embiid there. So what about Jimmy Butler? I mean, Jimmy Butler brought his team to the finals. That's got to make him better than Donovan Mitchell. Probably.
Yeah. Look, Spence. That one's it's tough to argue. Jimmy Butler is a superstar. He brought the Heat to the finals. He's an Olympian that can do what he wants when he puts his mind to it. He's an absolute alpha. He elevates the play of his teammates when they're bought in. Yeah, he's in the top 15 for me, Jimmy Butler.
All right, Kyrie Irving. We haven't even mentioned him just yet.
Now, skill-wise, so many people, of course, it's hard to argue what he's capable of doing, but I'm a big advocate, and the best ability you can have is availability, and this guy is not available. If it weren't for riding the coattails of LeBron James and him having the confidence in himself, LeBron James, I would say, gave him that confidence not to be as good as he is, but to be a championship player. Because what has he done without LeBron? He can't finish a season. He was a proverbial cancer in Boston's locker room. He's not got off to a good start in Brooklyn. He's on the fringe for me, Spent. And I'm saying at this point, because he's not been available enough, he's not in my top 15.
Wow. It's kind of bold, but I almost what am I going to disagree with you on? I mean, what you're saying is very valid. Now, this one's going to be tough for you because I know you're a big fan of this guy. Devin Booker. Is Devin Booker better than Donovan Mitchell right now?
This is tough, Spence. Yeah, this one's real tough. I do put Devin Booker in the top 15. I know he's won nothing yet, but he's on the rise. And the Phoenix Suns, whatever you want to say about them, they are picking up where they left off on that bubble, and they're going to make the playoffs this year. They are going to make the playoffs, and Monty Williams is the real deal as a coach, and I've been saying that. And you're going to see the Phoenix Suns make some noise. Do they get out of the first round? I don't know. What seed are they? I don't know. But they can't lose right now. They're winning game after game. They got one loss in the season, and they're not being slowed down whether they're on the road or at home. If they stay healthy, let's see where the Suns team can go this year. This is going to be the first year that they're going to be ready to break out, and I think it's all uphill after this season for Devin Booker and the Suns. So Devin Booker makes my top 15.
Okay, so we're up to 12. So there's only 3 more spots for Donovan Mitchell to find himself in there.
Well, I think we're at 14, Spence, because we said yes to Embiid, yes to Booker, and there was another guy that you mentioned that we said yes to after Ben Simmons.
Okay, so let's break it down. Like, these are the last names, and you got to only take one of them for the most part. Jamal Murray, Jokic. I think Jokic is obvious. I don't think there's an argument you can make. A guy who can influence the game at the center position at that. So I say you concede that. So it comes down to, do you think Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell deserve that 15th spot?
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, Spence. I think everything we named leads us to these two guys because they're the ones that had this battle in the playoffs last year, and Denver ended up taking it. And I think that this is spot on with the list. I think everything we've said up to this point is accurate, and it comes down to these two that battled in that playoff spot last year. And I think you could go either way, and I can't be too upset. I think on the resume, the consistency, I've seen it a little more often, even though he's great and I'd put him right at 16. I'm going to go Spider Mitchell 15 and right after him, Jamal Murray.
It's crazy. So did you really think, I mean, now that we fully fleshed this out, this is a little closer than you thought it would be because when you look at it last year, like, oh, no way, this guy's definitely it. But it gets a little dicey once you get further down that list for sure.
Yeah, Spence, do you have that in front of you? Can we go over it again real quick, the 15?
Yeah, so we'll go over the obvious ones real quick here. That's Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, and Steph Curry. Those are the obvious ones. And then you go to Devin Booker, and then you go to who else did we say?
We said Joel Embiid,
Jokic,
Nikola Jokic.
And there's so many other names too. I mean,
there's somebody we mentioned, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I mean, we didn't even talk Karl Anthony Towns. He's in the discussion, and I could tell you if he was healthy, he'd absolutely be in my top 15. Klay Thompson. So look. The bottom line, Spence, the NBA is in as good of a spot talent-wise, in my opinion, as ever. And I think you can pick 25 and 30 guys that you could argue could be in that top 15. I think the NBA is that stacked. And when you really break it down into detail and you talk about these guys, you really have to figure out what your criteria is for putting them in, because on a talent level, you're not missing much from 15 to 30. So now, since a lot of these guys don't have championships because it's been monopolized by LeBron James and the Spurs for the most part, now you have to say, well, what other attributes will move somebody up the list if the skill level is fairly similar? Is it playoff wins? Is it durability? So now you're kind of picking hairs here, but that's what makes it fascinating, because is it big moments? So we have to go through the resume and see how many key huge moments there's been if you really want to make a definitive list and say, yes, this person is in that top 15, or no, this person isn't. And I know ESPN puts out every year a top players list. I have not looked at it, but I am kind of curious where our list lines up with theirs.
Yeah, for sure. And those names that I listed weren't in order either. So, I mean, we would have to go through and actually be like, this is who we think the top 5 players is. We're just naming, players in general who we think are better. But there actually is a little more of the NBA discussion I want to have with you. So they had one of the biggest opening weekends viewership-wise in a long time. A lot of that's probably from people staying at home. But I think I don't know if I think this is a real reason, but I think another factor is they've just abandoned social justice. They don't care about it anymore, which again makes them look worse and worse. And then Adam Silver, he goes on NBA TV. He talks about how players should stand for the national anthem. They're falling apart here. They're collapsing, and it's for money, basically, is how I feel about it. I don't know how you think about that. I don't even know if you found out that Adam Silver had that stance, but they're going backwards on everything. There's no Black Lives Matter on the court anymore. It's a big joke.
Well, I think that's the right thing to do. They should have abandoned it. They should be focusing on getting viewership, getting ratings back, getting the relationship with China on course, and going about business as usual, because this is a business, Spencer the Wiz, and that's what they need to focus on. After taking the enormous hit that COVID-19 has provided for all sports, not having the revenue of fans and merchandise sales and revenue sales and everything that goes along with having people in the stands, I think your focus should be business at this point, because look, all that this social justice stuff does is divide people. And I'm not saying it's not important, but there's other ways to go about it than, like you saying, kind of virtue signaling and doing things that maybe aren't as genuine as we would like to be out of the people that a lot of people look up to.
No, for sure. And I don't know. I just think they're falling flat on their face and for money, and that's okay. I just wish they would admit that, just like I wish LeBron James would admit that he doesn't actually care about social justice. But we're going to keep it in the NBA here because an historical moment, you could say, definitely happened. Greg Popovich got ejected, and he pointed at Becky Hammon, said, "Hey, you're head coach for the rest of the game." So she became the first woman head coach to play to head coach in a basketball game. I think that's great, and I think that's really cool. And we can also talk about Sarah Fuller too, and we'll get to that in a moment. But was her stepping in as head coach, was this a breaking the glass situation, or are women just being thrown breadcrumbs, being like, here, like, are you happy now?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Spence. We're in a little bit of unprecedented territory when you're talking about this, because we know women can coach, but we've never really seen them in the spotlight as far as coaching men. So it's really tough to say what's happening here. Is this, we kept hearing that this would be a trend in the NFL, and we've seen some of it. But you could be onto something with the breadcrumbs thing, and maybe just kind of a beard. And look, I'm guaranteeing you, professional sports is a who you know, what you know foundation, and guys help guys out. And they may put on a mask for the media, saying women's rights, and they may be doing things, but they don't want to lose their jobs to women. And that's just the reality. No man wants to lose their job to anybody, much less a woman. And that's just fact. You could say what you want on the outside, and I respect women if they're qualified to do the position, or they're great at what they do. I love and respect greatness no matter where it comes from. But we have not seen this. This is unprecedented, and women are going to have to take the bulls by the horns in whatever way possible. If not, it's not going to be a prevalent thing. It's going to be a breadcrumb thing. And what I mean by that is you may see pinches of the salt here and there, a Becky Hammon, a Sarah Fuller, but it's not going to be something you see on the regular, not in men's sports.
And I wish it would be. And there's a whole lot we can talk about it. And I do want to talk about Sarah Fuller, and then I'll bring it to a higher discussion about women in sports too. When you saw the kickoff from Sarah Fuller, that was a historic moment too. The first woman to play in an NCAA men's football game. Really cool stuff. Did you see it as disrespectful to give her just a second half kickoff? Because, I don't think Vanderbilt even scored in that game to that point. So technically she didn't have an opportunity, but it kind of seemed weak, right? Although I know a lot of people were cheering about it. I'm not sure how I felt about it either.
Well, I thought it was disrespectful to patronize sports fans and give her an award for college football special teams player of the week when she did a kickoff. I'm sorry. We shouldn't be patting a woman or anybody on the back for doing their job. I'm sorry. I just think they're way off base here with the patting on the back. Now, if she actually impacted the game, they got blown out in that game. Come on. If you're going to step on the field with men and play a man's sport, you're expected to have the same productivity as anybody else. Look, when I was in high school, Spence, my 10th grade year, we had a girl try out for the football team, and she got in pads and game and competed with us. Nobody took it easy on her. They wanted her to quit. They did everything possible to punish her as far as hitting her, not taking it easy, so she would quit. And that's how it should be. You should test people in competitive high-level sports, basketball, football, anything. If you're going to step on the field with men or women, and the same thing with kids. If I'm at my local gym and a 12-year-old, Spence, wants to play with men, I don't treat him like a 12-year-old. And I've gotten to arguments with parents about this, big-time arguments in the past. If you step on the court or the field with grown men, you will get treated like a grown man. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a child, a woman, a man, or anything. And that's just the bottom line. Whether you agree with me or not, that's how I approach it. And I think that's how a lot of people approach it. And I think you're doing the sport a disservice if you don't approach it that way.
Do you think there's a separation between the kickoff and the extra point? Because technically she did score a point. So is that a bigger deal for you? Or is it just kind of the same, the kickoff and the extra point?
We're starting to move into a bigger deal. You've got to do something to impact the game. Kicking off is nothing. Come on. We shouldn't be should we talk about it as a sports story? Absolutely. Does she deserve any extra recognition or pats on the back for kicking off? No, Absolutely not. It's ridiculous, and it's insulting to the fans, and it's a slap in the face to the game if you're making it something bigger than it's not. Now, scoring a point, that's a big deal, but they're still losing. It's about wins and losses here. Okay? I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve credit for that, but she doesn't deserve extra credit just because she's a woman.
Yeah, no, I think there's very valid points.
I mean, they want to be treated equally, right, Spence? I mean, we're talking about equality here. So if you're going to step on the field with men, the same expectation is into place. Now, is a woman going to come in and be Tom Brady at the quarterback position or something else? Now we're talking a little far-fetched. But I've heard young women talk about being the first woman in the NBA for quite a few years. We're talking about this coaching. So why should we change the expectation of a professional athlete, regardless of the sport, based on anything besides their performance? I'm not looking at your color, at your gender, or at your size. I want to know, are you able to impact the game in wins and losses or make your teammates better? That's what I care about in a team sport and professional athletes. And if you're not doing that in some capacity, you're not getting any extra recognition from anybody that I know. You're certainly, what is she going to get? Some kind of extra scholarship or endorsement deal? Maybe because she's a woman, but I tell you what, she's not getting any looks from any NFL teams. So, I mean, what are we talking about here?
No, it's true. And I think a lot of it comes from just the mentality that we have for, women growing up. I can't speak for women. I'm not a woman. But what I see is that they just don't take them seriously. They're focused on separating the two. And I think there is a very valid statement to what you're saying in that, like, anything is perfect. Like, oh, like you broke the glass. Like you've gotten all the way through. You were in a coach. But I want to see more. I want there to be higher expectations growing up in high school and middle school, because we teach this from what I've seen just in my experience, especially in high school, is that women are taught that they aren't good enough, period. So until we change that mentality, nothing's going to change at all when it comes to any of this stuff. So we're going to continue to see kickoffs and extra points and stuff, and we're not going to go anywhere as long as we keep that same kind of energy going forward. We're going to have to cut a few topics here, but I'm going to jump to one real quick because I find this very interesting, and that's Derrick Rose. And we're going to keep it last little basketball topic here before we go into Johnny Manziel. I do want to talk about that as well, but this is a guy who was the youngest MVP. We know how bad his ACL tear was, but he's averaged 18 points a game in the past 2 seasons. So I'll ask you first, do you think Derrick Rose has done enough right now to make the Hall of Fame?
This is quite the question, Spence, because, I mean, I really have to go back and look because it's so easy for us to forget what Derrick Rose was when he was the first overall draft pick in Chicago in his MVP season, and making Bulls fans have a smooth transition from the championship days and actually believing that the Bulls had an opportunity to compete, to be back in title town with Derrick Rose leading that team. And it's not too far-fetched to say that they were right on track to do that, led by Tom Thibodeau, Derrick Rose, having Joakim Noah. I think Jimmy Butler was a Bull around that time also. So it's hard when you go from MVP Derrick Rose, playoff superstar Derrick Rose, and then kind of a fall off for a few years of injury, and then him hopping around from team to team. So this is a tough discussion for me, but I look at other guys that are Hall of Famers like Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. None of those two were necessarily MVP players. But if I'm basing it on that criteria and what he's done to impact the game as a whole, from even his high school days to now, I say it's a very close discussion. And if you're putting a gun to my head, Spence, I'm going to say if he can average this for another 2 years, yes, he will be a Hall of Famer for me.
So let me pose this question to you. So he still averages, what's better for him to get to 14,000 points? He has like 11,200 as of right now. Because 14,000, I'm looking, and I'll go to the list of names right now as we're talking here. Hopefully this load. So these are the guys in the 14,000 range, because if he averages it for the next 4 seasons, 18 points, he'll be in the same names as these Hall of Fame players. Some of them you probably haven't even heard of. JoJo White, Nate Thurmond, Bill Russell's obviously in there. Lou Williams at 14,500. He's obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame, but probably for different reasons. Jamal Wilkes, Richie Guerin. So a lot of these guys, Cliff Hagan, I don't even know these names, but they're in that 14,000 point discussion. And all those names I just mentioned, they are not MVPs, nor are they the youngest MVPs. So what would be better for him? So that we'll go back to this question. 14,000 points, or around that number where I just talked about, or being let's say he goes to 12,500 points, but he gets a ring as a role player for another team. What gives him the better chance to be in the Hall of Fame?
That's an excellent question, Spence. And wow, it's so tough to say. I mean, does he have a chance to go to the Lakers, and what role does he play on that? I think he can do both, possibly, if he's moved. And you mentioning those guys not being youngest MVPs, not being all of them rookie of the years, I think those two accolades may do it for him, and he could be a deserving candidate. It's just interesting to see the list of guys that need to go in. I mean, there's just been so many over the last decade that have great titles. I mean, is Robert Horry in yet? He's got 6 titles. I don't know if he's in yet. We'd have to look at that. But if he's not in, he's definitely on the list to go in. But Derrick Rose, he's going to be fringe, Spence. He's going to be right there on the fringe. And I think he can do both. I don't know which one jumps the other way. I mean, give me some help here.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it either. I say 14 points locks him in. Now, if he won that college championship and Mario Chalmers didn't ruin his career, I think who did Mario Chalmers play for? Was it Louisville? I think Kansas. That's right. So he ruined his, because Carmelo Anthony was almost a lock to make the college, or not the Basketball Hall of Fame just from his college career alone, along with this, because there's no championship. So he would be very much in the same vein, if not a little different. So to me, 14,000 points is more important than the championship, especially I don't think he can average 18 points on a championship team, because that would mean he's either starting or the 6th man. It's not going to happen on a championship roster. So that's kind of the discussion I have on Derrick Rose. But yeah, what are we going to go with?
I don't think he's going to be first ballot, but I think he does get in. Yeah,
it's crazy. The prevailing opinion right now is that he has no chance to make the Hall of Fame, but I don't think people realize how good he's been in the past couple of seasons. Not great, but good. And especially he has all those other accolades to go with him. So we're coming in at the end of the show, and I have to talk about this with you. It's Johnny Manziel. He finds his way back in the news somehow. He always does. He is joining the Fan Controlled League, and I'll read some excerpts from the Fan Controlled League website, and you tell me if you're in or out, because I was all in on the XFL. I loved it. Battlehawk for life. That's who I was. And it was really, I liked a lot. It was a little gimmicky, but very structured. And I liked the sideline interviews, all that kind of stuff. But this is a lot different. This is not just an alternate football league. So the games will stream on Twitch with fully integrated play calling. You're in the feed with the owners. They have advice, but you will vote on calls. Select the best play, and it's relayed right to the quarterback. Top fans on leaderboards have the most voting power. And the second part, it's up to you to pick the team name, design the logo and jerseys. You even have a say in the league rules. Have good taste, you'll be rewarded. As you build influence, you'll rack up fan IQ, and your votes will carry more weight. How do you feel about this league before we talk about Johnny Manziel?
I'm just hearing about it. I've heard about it a little bit before tonight, but you've given me more information right now than I've had up to this point. But from what you're telling me, I'm in. I love sports. I'm a sports junkie, Spence. So I'm not going to shy away from this. And I'd love to see the interaction between fans, because all of us think we're better coaches than the actual coaches, and we can call better plays than the actual play callers. So I'm down for this, and I'm all in.
So are you going to try to gain influence in the league and maybe have a powerful vote on play calling and stuff?
I would love to, because I know I'm a better play caller than a lot of guys out there. I just haven't had an opportunity to do it yet. Now I don't have some of the NFL verbiage that these guys, slot wing right, 26 spider wide banana zip. John Gruden has some of the longest play calls in the entire league. But I understand concepts and philosophies really well. I understand down in distances my football IQ, in my opinion, is pretty high. So, yeah, I think I'm a lot better play caller than most, and I think I'd be a better GM than quite a few guys. So prove me wrong. How can I be proved wrong? I don't know. Someone give me a shot.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to try to gain some social media influence to see if we can get in on the play calling, and we'll call something there. But we can talk about Johnny Manziel as well. This is a really bad look for him, in my opinion. This is a guy who said he was not going to join the XFL because he didn't want to be a part of a fluky league and a league that he didn't know if it was going to last. If you want to talk about fluky leagues and leagues that probably aren't going to last, it's the football controlled, or the fan controlled football league. What's he doing here? I mean, he's been really quiet about it. He hasn't said anything, and I'm sure that's why.
Well, you're right, Spence. He didn't want to be a part of anything gimmicky, but I got to give kudos to his agent and his inner circle because I know he hangs around one of your favorite Memphis Grizzlies. He's good friends with Chandler Parsons and some of his crew. So it's important for guys that have big name recognition that are no longer playing. They've got to stay relevant in some capacity because, Spence, how else are you going to go to special events and get yourself hired at signings and get paid to make appearances if you're not relevant? So this is an important role, and Johnny Manziel still being relevant, still being able to monetize who he is, and guys like Chandler Parsons also.
Championship weekdays on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
Sorry, I was not set on a wait command, so sorry about that. But no, you're totally valid. That his agent is the MVP without a doubt. And we'll kind of monitor that as it goes along. We didn't even get to talk about football. I didn't realize how much time we didn't have left.
Flew by.
Yeah, but that's the perfect segue into the rest stop. So we'll definitely be talking about football. I mean, we pick every game against the spread. So if you guys want to continue that conversation, just follow me on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz or Brad at Brad the Believer on Twitter and everything like that. And you'll be able to catch us up on that. So that's why I went heavy basketball today, because I kind of knew that in the back of my mind. And we will be on next, I guess today, Tuesday. So you'll get to hear what we think, and then we'll start talking about the playoffs as well.
Yeah, Spence, it was a pleasure being on with you and delivering sports tonight. And yeah, you can check out the Rest Stop every Tuesday and Thursday, myself and Spencer the Wiz, 9 o'clock Pacific time. We're on twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football, or you can follow it on my Twitter page at Brad the Believer. And of course, my YouTube channel is Brad the Believer. And we repost the podcast of myself and Spence. And we're heavy football here in this football season. But here in 2021, we're going to hit the gamut of pop culture, politics, and sports. And we're going to have some fun stuff in store for you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brad. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Spence. Have a great one.
All right. So, yeah, that's going to do it for today's show. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to let that kind of play through. So I'm going to try to leave this off with a little more NFL Street, about 30 seconds left. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Delivering Sports Show. I'm on every Friday at 7 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. Other than that, guys, that's going to do it for today. Hope you have an absolutely wonderful night.
USA Radio News.
I'm Jeremy Scott. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans blocked attempts for the fourth straight day to increase stimulus checks to $2,000 in a rare New Year's Day session. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says this